Do you have concerns been allayed about the Trump administration's stance when it comes to this transatlantic alliance and issues such as NATO?
Well, some of those concerns have been allayed because Pence and the Secretary of State, Tillerson, and the Defence Secretary, Mattis, who were all in Europe over the weekend, they all came with a united message, which was one of unwavering support for NATO, for the transatlantic alliance. We've just heard today for the EU, and also the fact that, that they would hold Russia accountable for its actions, specifically in Ukraine. All of that's welcome. At the same time, there remains a very large question mark to what extent do these senior officials actually speak for the administration? Is it these people, or is it Donald Trump, the president himself? He could be issuing tweets that actually contradict some of these messages. So that aspect is key and remains uncertain.
Yeah, Alan, we've got pictures here of Mike Pence, the Vice President and NATO's Secretary General. They're giving a joint news conference. When it comes to military integration, German Chancellor Angela Merkel has called for more of that between Germany and France. Is this possible? Many American presidents, of course, in the past have pressed other NATO members to spend more on defence, in the past to little effect. Will Angela Merkel's call for increased integration fall on deaf ears?
Well, I think that there are 2 points to this. That first of all, there's a clear recognition on behalf of the European leaders that they will have to step up in all sorts of spheres. If they are seeing an America First agenda, then the logical conclusion is that Europe will have to do more on multiple fronts, and that includes cooperation along the lines that you're talking about. Specifically on defence spending, then there was a little bit of unease, if you like, at the Munich conference when the Vice President Mike Pence started almost a hectoring tone, instructing the European allies to raise spending when they've already committed to do so. And as the Chancellor pointed out, Germany increased spending 8% last year. They're still a long way short of the target, but it's something that they have certainly committed to. But yes, it raises all sorts of questions about whether Europe will manage to get together and step up.
Yeah, I mean, that's the question, is it? I mean, is there sign among EU governments that they're willing to take these, what are deemed, especially in these populist times, unpopular measures towards further enlargement?
Further enlargement of the EU? No. That's firmly off the agenda for now. It simply would be unacceptable to the electorates in many, if not most, EU countries to have more people joining the EU at present. At the same time, there is a recognition in Germany, which after all is the biggest economy, the longest serving G7 leader here, Chancellor Merkel, who's hosting the G20, that certainly Germany will have to step up. France, it's too early to say because of the elections. Britain is on its way out the EU. Although, interestingly, we heard words from the Defence Secretary that he wants to continue defence and security cooperation post-Brexit. So, essentially, it's still too early to answer that question definitively.
Alan, on the Russia subject, which you touched upon, Mike Pence talked about finding common ground. What common ground is there?
Well, I'm not sure that they are very clear about that themselves. Certainly, if anyone came away from the Munich Security Conference unhappy or dissatisfied, it looked like the Russian Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov. He gave a very short speech and then answered questions, which is more than the US delegation did. They didn't answer any questions, most of them at least. Because the US was relatively robust towards Russia, and specifically they committed to the Minsk peace process in Ukraine. But what kind of common ground can be found with Russia? The obvious answer to look, the obvious area to look at is over sanctions, and certainly there's no indication that the US and certainly not the EU is willing to roll back there. So that is one more of the unknown unknowns.
Alan, really quickly, why didn't the US delegation answer questions? Does that highlight the dysfunction at the top of the Trump administration?
Well, I'm not sure I would put it as strongly as that. Certainly, it did look to most observers that they came with a very deliberate message, which was presumably agreed with the president himself, and they didn't really want to be examined on that or depart from that at all. So certainly, the Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, who wasn't in Munich but was in Bonn last week for the G20, the State Department were very clear, he was in listening mode. And so certainly that you could interpret it that way. Yeah, it was a talking point in Munich.